Hey, I'd like to welcome you to our podcast, UFOs, The Truth is Out There. Here you're going to find some interesting stuff that we were able to dig up, and we try to bring you those stories and encounters that aren't highly widely publicized because of the fact that people were either forced to keep quiet or decided to keep quiet under their own circumstances. We have one here from 1973 that actually comes from my hometown. Not quite my hometown, but my home region, where I lived in Columbus, Ohio. This is the 1973 coin helicopter encounter on the bases of Ohio, a magnet to the unknown. We call it the Ohio Corridor Connection. During that time period, there was a little Air Force base just south of Columbus, Ohio, and it was called Lockbourne Air Force Base, which was basically a strategic command that later became Rickenbacker Air Force Base, and I believe still functions slightly, but it's somewhat closed. It used to be a really big place for nuclear weapons storage, weapons testing, bomb testing, and a lot of times when private or classified military flights would go into Wright-Patterson carrying cargo that people weren't supposed to be told or known about, they would be flown into Lockbourne and trucked across the state of Ohio by land to keep them from being less obvious and to keep people from watching the air traffic coming in and out of Wright-Pat. This is an amazing time period for those of you interested in UFOs and UAPs, the unidentified aerial objects. This time period in that part of the country were a lot of sightings. Me growing up there knew UFOs were real. We knew they were American military technology. We knew with beyond the shadow of a reasonable doubt that someone was watching. But as a child, that's all romantic and fun and wonderful. And as you grow up, you tend to realize maybe that's not what was happening, when in all reality it was. So please bear with us. Go grab you a really good cup of coffee, maybe a donut or two. Turn up your little speakers and kick back and relax and enjoy this few minutes alone with us as we talk about the coin helicopter encounter and the bases at Ohio, a magnet for the unknown. One more thing before I go. The one thing that makes this completely believable, completely credible, is 99% of this is dealing with military personnel that have actually had a real encounter with something that could not be explained. So just bear with me, have a great time with us, and we'll be right back. Hey, welcome back. Like I said, today we're talking about the coin helicopter encounter. On October 18th, 1973, the U.S. Army Reserve UH-1H helicopter was flying from Columbus to Cleveland, Ohio. And on board were Captain Lawrence Coyne, Lieutenant Arago Jazzy, St. John Healy, and Sergeant Robert Yanasek, all trained, experienced military personnel. At approximately 11 p.m. over Mansfield, Ohio, the crew spotted a fast-moving red light approaching from the east. Thinking it was a plane on a collision course, Coyne dropped the helicopter from 2,500 feet to 1,700 feet to avoid a collision. Instantly, the object changed direction and intercepted them. The crew described the craft as a metallic gray cigar-shaped object, about 60 feet long, with a bright red light on front and a green beam on the side. This green beam swept across the helicopter.
Oh my God, look at the size of it! We're caught in the beam!
The helicopter actually began climbing without engine power. Coyne, being the experienced pilot he was, pulled the collective all the way down, shaking. The aircraft should have been falling. Instead, it rose from 1,700 feet to 3,000 feet. The object then shot straight up into the sky and vanished. Incredible. Multiple civilian witnesses on the ground reported the very same object. Now let us talk about the Ohio UFO wave of 1973. Ohio, Michigan, Pennsylvania, and Kentucky were all experiencing a major wave of UFO activity in 1973. Columbus was directly inside this corridor. Reports included silent craft, red lights, green beams, and objects performing impossible maneuvers. I was living in Columbus under the time, right under the same airspace where these sightings were occurring as a 9-year-old child. And now you wonder why we have this podcast 50 years later. Why the sightings were drawn to Ohio? There were two major military installations which formed a triangle of high-interest airspace. Wright-Patterson Air Force Base in Dayton and Lockbourne Air Force Base near Columbus, Ohio. Wright-Patterson was actually the center of U.S. aerospace intelligence and UFO research. It was historically tied to Project Sign, Project Grudge, Project Blue Book, and foreign technology exploitation. Lockbourne Air Force Base, on the other hand, hosted nuclear-capable aircraft, weapons testing, and classified transport operations. It also had its own UFO incidents, including radar confirmations and security reports of structured craft hovering near restricted areas. Unknown craft appearing between Mansfield, Columbus, and Dayton fits a long-standing pattern. UFOs were frequently reported near nuclear assets, weapons testing zones, and aerospace research hubs. Is this coincidence? Is somebody keeping an eye on us? Are they observing us to make sure that we don't do something too crazy too fast in space? Are they setting us up for an invasion? Are they setting us up for an encounter? Are we going to have first contact soon, 50 years later after all of these sightings? I'm going to tell you what, believe this, that corridor is still highly active. You know, I wasn't really just alive when this happened. I was living in the exact region where the aerospace was active with these sightings. And I remember these civilian reports from Columbus, Newark, and Mount Vernon describing the same red lights and green beams seen by the helicopter crew. As a matter of fact, often at night, we would look in the sky and see what we had always thought were either high-flying aircraft or shooting stars lighting up our night skies. This was a hotbed of activity during 1973, and I personally remember it. The coin incident remains one of the strongest UFO cases ever recorded due to the fact that 4 trained military witnesses were the only ones affected by this thing at that time during this incident. There were radar and civilian confirmation. There were physical effects on the aircraft. The pilots had missing time, a pilot who later went silent, and proximity to 2 major military bases with known UFO history. This wasn't a random sighting. It was part of a larger pattern centered around Ohio's military infrastructure. And like I asked you, is this coincidence? Is this random? Now, do you remember those 4 balloons that were shot down, that were found hovering near American military bases? Were they truly Chinese? Why have we not heard anything about them? Like where they come from, what they were made of, what they found when they discovered them? Why have we never heard any of that? I want to know. What happened in those incidents? Why is it all of a sudden now Congress is starting to talk about extraterrestrials and how our government's known about them for years? Why is this all coming out now? Especially after 3i Atlas makes its little appearance in our solar system and comes back. What's next? First contact? Listen, guys, I don't know if you can put all of this together or not, but there is something funny going on. I believe our military and our government knows exactly what's going on, and we're going to use all of our capabilities to find out why and how. We did a research project on 3-eye atlas that I'm going to make public, and it's going to blow your mind. And we'll be posting a link to that on our website, gamersedge.site, so you want to pay attention to that. I also want to thank you for stopping by and listening to this podcast. I also want to thank you for spending this time with me. And if you're interested in UFOs, please follow this site so you can hear when we do our updates, because we're going to be updating frequently. We're going to be bringing you more accounts like this that are crazy. These truly prove something's going on. We've got 4 trained military witnesses with radar and civilian confirmation. Radar doesn't lie, and civilians aren't crazy by effects. Then there are also effects on the aircraft, and the fact that the crew came up with missing time, several minutes. Come on now. Something happened to these pilots. Aircraft just don't rise in the sky overnight like that. 1,700 feet to 3,000 feet. Come on. In the blinking of an eye. Completely uncontrollable by the pilot. Do you know what that would be like? That would be like you driving in your car and all of a sudden it accelerates from 30 to 70 miles an hour without you pushing the pedal. Can you imagine how that would feel? Wow. So listen, I'm going to bring this to a close, and I'm going to make you think about one thing. If 4 trained military witnesses come forward and talk about this and then go quiet, it wasn't because they wanted to. It was because they were forced to. And if they were forced to, what next?